Researchers call it soft fascination, which makes it sound like a new age meditation technique. Soft fascination is a state of effortless, gentle attention, which is almost maybe a meditation technique. But really, soft fascination is when your mind focuses on gentle environmental stimuli. Think dappled sunlight on trees, or creek water trickling around stones, or branches swaying in the breeze. We're drawn to such sounds and movements in nature, not as a meditation technique, simply as a reality. We all do it. And it's not because these experiences are loud, or they're amazing, or they're demanding of our attention, but precisely because they are not. And yet, our attention is drawn. Evolutionarily, these sounds and motions are a sign that all's well, right? No danger or threat is looming. Watching a thunderstorm from a dry porch is certainly an amazing experience. Standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon is a phenomenal way to gain perspective. But that's not the experience these researchers are talking about. It is instead the soft, gentle, effortless stimuli that we're naturally drawn to, which allow our otherwise taxed minds to rest and heal. And I will add, this is not just cool background sounds, like from a white noise machine. Although such devices are not unhelpful, it's not background. This is experiences of soft fascination, is when your attention is on the experience. Studies have shown for decades that experiences of soft fascination are calming and restorative. Other studies highlight benefits such as stress reduction and anxiety reduction. There's studies about blood pressure and pain perception and general immune support. One hitch is that folks struggle to determine exactly why being in nature in this way helps. We just know that it does. I have always loved the woods and wilderness. I love the wilderness from my experiences growing up, with opportunities to explore and play, and every now and then to simply be in the woods near my home. I grew up in Bushnell Basin, near where the Erie Canal runs along the southern suburbs of Rochester, New York. Glaciers had carved the basin long ago, which accounts for the many sudden hills and lowlands. Across the street from my house, there was one such lowland. The ground dropped down several dozen feet to a broad swath of trees and clearings that we called the flats. Not really wilderness exactly, but for a child and a youth, it was enough. Every spring and fall, these flats would become a maze of flooded creeks and overgrown puddles, and all winter they were thick patches of ice hidden throughout the land. It was not useful for farming or developing, so it was left to go wild, with trees and shrubs left to grow wild for the imagination and exploration of the children in the neighborhood. Once I was old enough to be outside on my own, I spent nearly every nice afternoon down in the flats. I wandered a stretch of several miles, sometimes with a friend or sibling, more often alone. I explored, learned the boundaries of the creek, memorized where the flats turned to farmland and cornfields, finding the biggest trees, making up games, having adventures. I developed a strong sense of ownership to the flats. Ownership maybe is too possessive of a word. I developed a strong sense of identifying with the flats, like they're mine. Like the wilderness was a gift for me to open anew each day. I spent years down there, like it was an extension of my bedroom, my home, my own kitchen. When I read about environmental psychologists studying the benefits of being in nature, I am reminded of the woods of my youth, When I hear people talk about hiking or camping, I'm reminded of the woods of my youth. When I venture into the woods as an adult, I am reminded of these woods of my youth. There's a portion of Walt Whitman's poem, Leaves of Grass, that I've always identified with. There was a child went forth each day, Whitman wrote. And the first object he looked upon and received with wonder or pity or love or dread, that object he became. And that object became part of him for the day or a certain part of the day or for many years or stretching cycles of years. The early lilacs became part of this child, the grass and the white and red morning glories, the white and red clover and the song of the phoebe bird. Whitman continues, listing many things in nature and people that became part of this child. The point he makes is that such encounters form our identities. Time in nature, or in any setting really, shapes who we become. I think we tend to downplay the impact such experiences have on children in particular. As adults, we can still have formative experiences, but our brains are most ready for such things when we are younger. When people think about spiritual experiences, we usually imagine big events like a grand epiphany or a dramatic turning point. What if regular childhood practice like rambling through the woods could count as a spiritual experience? What if we're talking about simple, quiet experiences, not just the grand, dramatic ones? In her most recent book, The Wonder Paradox, philosopher, poet, and professor Jennifer Michael Hecht writes about the value of poetry for non-religious people to engage in the thing religious people call spiritual experiences. She suggests poetry. Her book explores how poetry can open us to wonder and awe, and she offers a biographical sketch early in her book. She says this: "My physicist father didn't believe in God, but kept quiet about it most when we kids were young. I believed from the time my mother told me God was there, until one day when I was 12, standing in my parents' living room when I had an uncanny mental shift. I suddenly knew I might be anybody, anywhere, but instead happened to be here, being me. The proximate cause was ordinary loveliness, a steep slant of late afternoon light serrated in the folds of a diaphanous blue curtain, nylon maybe. Yellow sunlight in a glowing fabric curlicue. I saw that we are just one species among great nature, and as the trees very slowly rot, so do our pampered hunches. That's it. There's no reason to imagine a guy in the sky bowling to make thunder or brooding over how we have failed him. Then the sounds of the world returned to my hearing, and I never lost interest in such perspective shifts, and I never again believed." I am fascinated by her description. One person can see a shaft of sunlight through the curtain and interpret a loving God. Another, the utter lack of a God. And still another can take no meaning whatsoever beyond that it is lovely. My point is less about the conclusion we may reach and more about honoring that such moments can and do shape us profoundly. Hecht called what she experienced a perspective shift. Perhaps it is this perspective shift that makes an ordinary experience of soft fascination into a spiritual experience. There's some meaning, some shift that also happens during this period of attention on a natural stimuli. All right, I'm beginning to devolve into analysis of semantics, but I'm very interested in our experiences of the natural world that lead us into wonder and into healing and shape our identities. I recently pawed through an old copy of the book, The Geography of Childhood. The book is a series of essays by naturalist Gary Nabaum and Stephen Trimble, in which they present their hypothesis that children need wild places in their lives. Using mostly stories from their own lives and the lives of their children, along with a sound base of theory and research, the authors make a compelling case. The hypothesis is not that everyone needs wild places, although I would say we do. Their hypothesis was that children need wild places. Children in particular need wild places for developmental reasons. Surveys claim that less than 10% of adults see the quality of the environment as an important issue. In that book, one of the quotes is, over 90% of our children feel that it is a major issue in their lives. They're drawn to these wild places like moths to a flame. My experience and feelings about nature fit very well with what the authors suggest in this book. I remember how they talked about studies done of how children use school playgrounds. In one situation, they replaced an acre and a half of asphalt with a diverse group of traditional playgrounds, swings and bars, structures and sitting areas, and a half acre of fishing ponds, streams, woods, and meadows. Then they watched how the children played, where they played. One thing they found was this: the natural area of the playground saw wider ranges of activity and more mixing of the genders. The bit of asphalt that they left was used primarily by boys for competitive ball games. This is how some of the children described that natural area. It's a very good place. Real quiet. Lots of kids just sit around there and talk. It's just perfect. Children make themselves at home in the wilderness. Swings and slides and playground climbing equipment are all great. Kids love those things. They are exciting. I mean, there's something altogether different and important, though, that is found in wild places. All experiences of wonder are important and valuable. You know, that experience of pumping on the swing and getting so high, that's valuable. Holding on to a powerful ATV or a snowmobile as the wind rushes past you, that's amazing, sure. Visiting the elephants at the zoo, don't stop doing that. All of these experiences can be experiences of wonder, and they're curated. They're contained. They're commercialized. They're still good. But wild wonder is something else. I went hunting for a story that caught in the back of my mind, and I could not find its source. In my mind, it's about Louise May Alcott as a child. I don't think it is. But there's a story about a young girl who, while very young, wanted to be out in the woods, and an elder helped her learn that she can't just go out and find the deer and find the animals. She has to sit. And the elder teaches her how to just be there and wait. Perhaps bring some food, but just be there. And how after a long stretch of time, animals came to her where she was resting, being in nature. Wild wonder is not curated. It does happen naturally. We can't make it happen. Showing up and joining the song, if you will, is how we do it. Wild wonder is nourished by chirping crickets and shifting patches of sunlight, burbling creek water and fields of undulating wheat moving like waves on the ocean. Wild wonder hums and shines in a way that eases our minds and brings spiritual restoration. Wild wonder allows our nervous systems to settle and heal. We are drawn to these natural experiences. We don't need to force our minds to be empty or to recite the supplications in just the correct way. We simply need to show up and allow our brains to do what they might naturally do when offered the context of the gentle natural world, to experience wonder. May we each fall in love anew with the quiet murmurings of the natural world. May we rest in the grace of the world. May we be led into the presence of green pastures and still water. May we reacquaint ourselves with the companionable ease found in being present where we are welcome, in nature, among the dappled leaves and the gentle buzz of life. May you find yourself slip into a meditative state of soft fascination, and may it bring you rest, and may it restore your soul. In a world without end, may it be so. Please join in singing a closing hymn. It is number 3.